Hello, Helen here. Today's card's using a little bit of an experimental method today. It's a card you can certainly do with just using die cuts of butterflies, but today I'm going to do the butterflies using a silicone mould and some moulding paste. Now, apologies if you're not interested in this using moulds, but I recently saw a YouTube video by a lady called Colleen from 47CMC is her YouTube channel, and she's done quite a few lace moulds using moulding paste. Colleen's primarily a card maker as well, so she's using her lace that she's making on her cards. The moulds, this particular butterfly mould is a cake decorating mould, and I'm going to use moulding paste in that, and it ends up being quite flexible but very thin, so it's almost like a die cut, and the detail in it, I'm not sure whether you can see it on camera, my camera wouldn't focus properly, is very detailed, so they're really lovely. And you can colour the moulding paste with acrylic paints, so you can make them more or less any colour you like these ones. I'm going to be using this golden light moulding paste with my butterflies here today, but you can use other mediums as well, and I'm going to do a video next on different mediums you can use, and also various different options in moulds, so stay tuned for that if you're at all interested. It's more or less the same process as when you're using a stencil. You just use a palette knife and spread some of the moulding paste onto into the mould shape. You've just got to make sure you go backwards and forwards in various different directions, making sure that you get all the paste into all the little nooks and crannies. Once I'm happy with how all the butterflies are looking, I'm just smoothing out the top and taking any excess off and popping that back in the jar to reuse again. And then I've got to put it aside to dry for 24 hours. That seems quite a long time, but you've got to make sure that the bottom surface is totally dry. It may be ready a bit before that. Make sure that you clean off your palette knife with a baby wipe while it's still wet. It's just about impossible to get off once it's dry, so just clean up everything thoroughly. While I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm going to do a strip of stencil on a card panel. I've stuck down my card onto a board with some painter's tape just to keep it nice and flat while the stencil's drying, and I've masked off the strip that I want the stencil to be in, and put my low-tack painter's tape down both sides where I don't want the stenciling to go, so that it keeps my card front nice and clean. So I'm using this Tim Holtz stencil called Flourish. It's one of my favourite stencils, and I'm going to be using this Nuvo glimmer paste called Moonstone. It dries clear, but it has a lovely glittery shimmer to it, so that's what you're left with when it dries. So I'm spreading that out with a palette knife just down the length, smoothing it out, and then I can put any of the excess back in the jar to use again another time. And then I'm going to peel off the painter's tape from both sides and then put that aside to dry. And then as soon as I can, I'll go off and wash my stencil just to make sure that I don't have any glitter or paste still stuck to it. Once my mould has dried for its 24 hours, I'm going to come back and clean up some of the area around it. When you do your spreading out of the moulding paste, you do end up with a little bit of film still left on the silicone mould. So what you use is, I think in some countries it's just called alcohol, or rubbing alcohol, but we call it isopropyl here. So I'm just using some that I've got in a spray bottle, and I'm going to just squirt some on a baby wipe and then rub around the edge of the mould, just cleaning it up, and also making sure that I go over the middle parts of the butterflies where the mould sticks out, just to make sure that I've got the holes and the patterns of the butterfly when I take them out of the mould. This is a little bit time consuming, but it's well worth it for the finished product. Once you've done your cleanup, you can start peeling the butterflies out of the mould. I tend to just bend the mould and peel it from the wing to the middle, and then work my way back from the wing to the middle from the other side, just making sure I don't snap off any of the antenna. You'll see here I end up putting one of the butterflies back into the mould and doing a bit more cleaning up, because I've still got a little bit of the film over the little holes in the middle of the wings. Once the butterflies were out, I ended up doing a spray of this glimmer mist over the butterflies, just to give them a bit of sparkle, and then left them to dry for a little bit. Now I'm going to go back to my card panel, and I'm going to make a bow that I'm going to put along the bottom of the panel. So I'm using this bow maker that my darling husband made me. It's just a block of wood that's got some holes drilled in it, and then some pegs that come in and out, and I can change the size of the bow. And the beauty of the block of wood is that I can have it lying down on its side or standing up, depending on the size of the bow and the size of the ribbon, etc. Now, something I like to do when I'm tying a bow to go around a card is I also cut a strip of the seam binding or ribbon that I'm using that's just a bit wider than the card front, so that I can actually incorporate that into the bow when I'm making it. So I get part way through tying the bow, and then I slip in the strip that's going to be going around the card panel and tie the bow in with that in, and then when I slide it off the bow maker, I can just find the strips that I'm going to stick around the card. I hope that makes sense. I don't know whether I explained it very well. I can just cut the little bow ends now, and then it's ready for me to stick with some double-sided tape onto the back of the card panel, and then I fluff around a bit with the bow, just getting it how I want it. Actually, I do a lot of fluffing around with it. Now that that's done, I can stick the front panel down onto the card base. I've put some fun foam on the back of the card panel and then sticking that down onto the card base, and that's my card done, other than putting the butterflies on. I purposely haven't put a sentiment on this card because the style it is, it could be for any purpose really, including something like a wedding or engagement, so I'll wait until I have an occasion to use it for and then put the appropriate sentiment on it at that point. To make sure the bow sticks where I want it, I'm just going to put a glue dot underneath the bow so it sticks onto the card. To stick the butterflies onto my card, I'm going to use some little foam squares that I've cut in half, so they're just tiny little pieces on either side of the wings, and then I'm going to put glue on both that and the centre of the butterfly wings and stick them down onto the card. I'm having to wait till the glue's tacky and then push down into the centre so that I get a bit of a bend in the butterfly, which gives it a little bit of movement. Unfortunately, once I'd finished these, you can see the little foam squares behind the wings because of the laciness of the wings, so ideally I should have put some blobs of silicone or some clear foam tape that's is available, but I didn't have any. Finishing touch for my card's going to be some Nuvo crystal drops. I've got the white gloss here and I'm going to put 3 little dots on each of the bodies of the butterflies, making sure that I keep some space between them. You could use some enamel dots, you could use little gems, anything you wanted to just finish off the butterflies. Well, that's my card finished today. I hope I didn't scare you off too much with the silicone mould butterflies. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.